Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Approval of consent agenda. Gentlemen, take a look at the consent agenda. Is there anything that you would like to have removed or brought out at this time?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed. I need a second.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call. Yeah, okay. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Casper.
Aye.
Zelinski.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. Thank you for that. Motion carried. All right, moving right along. Health and Human Services. Come on up, state your name and how we're having you here today, Kate. So,
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good
Katie Canetto. I'm filling in for Nate this morning for Health and Human Services, bringing forth a resolution. We are looking to support Clay County in obtaining funding for a PRTF. PRTF is Psychiatric Residential Treatment Facility. Those are facilities that there's only a few in the state currently. They serve youth up to the age of 21 with extreme mental health diagnoses. It's in a residential type facility, but it allows them to receive treatment without being in the hospital. Currently, like I said, we don't have a lot of these in the state. We found them to be very beneficial, and so Clay County is looking at obtaining funds to add one and in Moorhead area. But this would allow our clients to also access that. PRTFs in general have been pretty successful for our clients and often reduce out-of-home placement costs because it's treatment. And so we are not, insurance that's run through that, like any medical treatment is not our out-of-home placement funds. So just looking for the board's approval for us more or less to support Clay County in seeking funds to create this and develop it there.
gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion.
I'd make that motion, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Commissioner?
Katie, two questions. Clay County seeking funding. I'm assuming that this is state funding to do this.
Correct.
And our impact on this would, if this was to happen, would be a possible reduction in cost for our programs here in the county. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's no financial cost to us by supporting them, but it would only benefit us if they develop it. We're allowed to utilize that for our clients.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Zelinski?
Katie, good morning. I would anticipate it's probably also got some federal funding that probably would be attached to all that besides that. However, so I'm very clear on under 21s. And I'm also very clear on the under 21 person is acting out. I'm just going to use that as a term. Acting out, and law enforcement is called. No laws have been broken. In the olden days, and yes, the olden days, that person probably went to jail. In the olden days, long ago. And today, of course, things have changed. We've all learned things. And the question becomes is what do you do with that individual? And please, I'm being very loose with my words, I think, very open, and I'm not looking at any one thing. Is what do you do with that individual? So if that happens in Morrison County today, where are the locations that where law enforcement probably would transport that individual?
Well, to answer your question, totally. So the PRTF is a process. So this wouldn't be a place where law enforcement would bring them on the spot. They have to have the mental health diagnosis. So there is a series of steps that would need to occur first. This wouldn't just be like a drop off for somebody who's having mental health crisis currently. We would still utilize our mobile crisis outreach and some of those places that we use currently. This is for longer term treatment for those individuals that are really struggling and have maybe tried some of those other avenues that haven't been successful.
Excellent answer. How many, excuse me, Mr. Chair, if I can follow, how many of these facilities, if you know, maybe you don't know, are there in Minnesota right now?
I think there's only 4 currently.
And this would become a 5th. Beautiful, thank you, that's all I needed, appreciate it. And thank you for clarifying what I said,
Yeah.
or what I didn't say. Appreciate it.
Anything else, gentlemen? Mr. Casper.
Katie, I was just gonna ask you, do you see the numbers rising in the need?
Yes, and so PRTFs are a somewhat newer, treatment mode. You know, we're finding that, right, there needs to be more of a focus on mental health than maybe some of the past facilities that we've utilized. But however, I would say on average, we have about 1 youth a month who needs this level of care that is not able to receive it because there isn't a bed open.
I see. Thank you.
Commissioner Lemire.
I just want to say, this is an issue that we've been struggling with for maybe over a decade, finding healthcare needs for individuals and children, and I think this is a great opportunity, and I think we're moving forward.
And if I have a comment, maybe more of a comment than a question, this is something for Morrison County residents. We're not gonna be going out as, if this would resolution passes and they acquire the money, this would be helping out Morrison County, am I
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And again, you explained all those different ways, and you said that right now, 1 person per month is not going with, services or whatever.
Isn't able to receive this level of care due to effects.
And see, and I know I sit on a mental health board, and it's the same thing. The beds in some areas are just impossible to get, you know, so, and I personally, this is me, and I'm sure the rest of the board takes these resolutions seriously. And this one, I always like, it really affects Morrison County people here, you know, so, and I appreciate that you bringing this forward, so. Again, any more discussion? I have a motion and a second. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Oh, land services. Good
Morning, Miss Amy.
You can state your name for the record, please.
Good morning, I'm Amy Kowalczyk, I'm Land Services Director for Morrison County. I have a few items for you today. The first one is to consider the interim use permit request to operate an automotive repair shop within a detached garage. This was an application put forward by Brent Lucas. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their last meeting with 4 conditions. And those conditions were abide by all applicable state and local laws regarding automotive repair and proper disposal of fluids and wastes. Maintain records of disposal of automotive fluids and wastes and provide for review of records at the request of the Land Services Department. Third, no outdoor storage of vehicles or vehicle components except for the vehicles on site for service shall be located on the property. And the last, the interim use permit shall sunset when either one of the following events occurs. Either the applicant no longer owns the property or a new building or shop is proposed on the property to continue the business.
All right,
Mr.
gentlemen,
Chair, make a motion to approve
with the conditions,
with the conditions.
I need a second.
I'd second.
I have a second. Gentlemen, any more discussion?
I just want to say that he had all positive comments, he had no negative comments at the final commission meeting.
And myself, I know where this is, pretty, you know, where that area is. And this is again, a repair shop, and boy, that's needed in our area. So the more we can have it for those, because again, the little business is going out of business, so it's nice to bring them back. So, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, the next thing I have is to consider the conditional use permit request from the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls. This is to establish a 500 kilowatt community solar energy system. This was also considered by the Planning Commission at their last meeting and was recommended for approval with one condition. And that condition was the property owner shall plant and maintain a tree buffer adequate to screen the solar installation on the east and south sides of the installation.
Gentlemen, I will ask for a motion and second. This does not mean that you're
Make a
for or
motion.
against it. All right, we have a motion. I need a second. I'll ask one more time for a second.
Mr. Chair, I'll second it for further discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Zelinski. All right, any more discussion? Questions? Commissioner Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start. I've got several. And one is gonna be, are all the permits with Minnesota, whatever those permits might be, whatever is needed to take place, are they all done?
Mr. Chair?
Yep, and if I may interrupt, do you have anybody representing the energy company here? If you'd like to come up and state your name, and then if a question comes out after we get done asking, then we'll let you follow up.
Good morning. I am Alex Gast with Cedar Creek Energy.
All right, thank you, sir. Go ahead, Amy.
All right, so Mr. Chair, to answer Commissioner Jelinski's question, are you asking about, when you said permits from the state, are you talking about the Public Utilities Commission, or are you asking about the Minnesota Power Interconnection Agreement?
I'm talking about every permit that is needed for this project.
So I'm gonna defer to Mr. Gast as
Okay.
far as, where this isn't under PUC jurisdiction, because it's small. But, as far as for status of the interconnection agreement, I'll defer to Mr. Gast.
Can I respond to all the permitting questions as well?
Just respond to the one question first, please.
Okay. So, on the interconnection, the studies have been paid for. It is ready to be signed for the interconnection application. And that application, the signee is being negotiated currently with the hospital and the sisters due to a metering arrangement that they have with the shared services within the facility. So it is at the point of where it's ready for execution. They are just logistically and legally working on who will sign it within the organization. From the permitting standpoint, we are unable to apply for a building permit until we have this conditional use permit. The electrical permit will be through the state of Minnesota. It has not yet been applied for. There's no reason to see why it would not be approved. And I believe those are the only permits that we currently would need to construct the array.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, can I continue?
Please do.
Who ultimately, at the end of the day, this is all built, it's in service. Who ultimately is the owner of the project from today until the project faces decommission?
So Cedar Creek Energy will only array for the first 6 years of the project.
Okay.
After that, it will transfer ownership to the sisters and they will own it for the life of the system.
That answered that. And if I can continue, Mr. Chair?
Please do. I'll give you one more question and I'll leave it up to the rest of the
Okay.
board.
Cool. And that one's gonna go on the condition, the one that's listed, and that is trees. As we all know, we've gone through a season of pretty much no rain. And most of us know what happens when you put a tree in the ground and you don't take care of it. Now, we did hear at the planning commission meeting, if you will, board of adjustment meeting, that don't worry about it because we're gonna be here to take care of those trees. Good, that's what I want to hear. The proposal was for 1 row of trees. My proposal is for 3 rows of trees staggered. And I truly believe that we need to have something, a clear understanding of who's going to maintain the watering, thus the growth of these trees. And my purpose of 3 is, let's face the music, we're gonna plant 1 row of trees. Anybody that's ever planted anything like that knows very clearly they're not all gonna grow. Further, this is a big change to the landscape, in my opinion, what's gonna be viewable by the public. That if we have 3 rows of trees that are staggered, eventually, and let's be fair about it, you don't get 30-foot trees overnight. Eventually, this will take care of the landscape. Mr. Chair, I believe that's all I've got, at least for right now.
All right, gentlemen, any more questions or comments? If not, I'll let them talk. I have plenty of questions too, but why as a county board, throughout township boards, city council boards, we give permits out to assortment of different, buildings, chicken barns, hog barns, maybe gas stations. Why is this the only one that they require a decommission?
So the decommissioning bonds that we've seen throughout the state of Minnesota are there for a reason, right? A lot of these systems, full disclosure, are owned by investors out of state, right? At the end of their useful life, you guys as a county want to have a means or a mechanism to make sure that what has been put in place can be removed, thus a decommissioning bond, right? When you look at, for example, your auto repair shop that we discussed earlier, right? That most likely is going to inhabit a physical structure that at the end of its useful life can either be sold, recaptured, et cetera. That is the primary reason why I believe a decommissioning bond is required and should be required from the county standpoint, right? With that being said, these systems that get put in have recyclable materials, they have copper, they have wire, they have all this other value that can be recaptured from them. So
Do they have heavy metals in them?
the panels that we're using do not. So we're using a silicon wafer product, not a thin film product. So
And I contacted a couple of the recycling here in the state of Minnesota. There's only one company that will take the solar panels. I don't know if you're aware of that. And they charge to come and pick them up. They charge by the ton or the pound, which is I've never seen. And that's what concerns me with this here too, with these solar panels, is the fact that if, and again, I hope the system, they mean very well on the solar with the green energy and that sort, but if by some chance these solar panels turn out to have other metals in it that now at this time, we've had issues prior to, the year sitting on the board as far as, they would allow stuff to go into our dump, into our landfill. Now we don't. So in this case, that's the same thing concerned, especially when this is getting to the type, it's 3 acres or something like that. And if this particular, barn that you decide wants, in the sisters, they have it out there and they decide it's gonna cost $200,000-300,000, $400,000. What do you think? They can't afford to send that away. Maybe no one, the gentleman or lady I talked to at the other landfill, she said there's other states that are calling them to take their solar panels because again, they have to test them before they get them. So what's the consequences to if the sisters, after 5 or 10 years, you said that what's the consequences gonna be then? If the county gets there, maybe Amy, they say, you know what, we're not gonna take these solar panels. They're done. And where are you gonna go with them? It's gonna cost you $300,000. What would happen?
the sisters would be on the hook to pay for it in that scenario that you just painted. But I don't believe that is the case, given what we just recently, for example, Qcell is a large panel manufacturer, is building a US production facility in Georgia. They just announced a partnership with a US based recycling organization to end of life, take their products back in and remove them, right? The components of a solar panel are an aluminum frame, a low iron front glass sheet, and then a vinyl back sheet. And then inside of it is a silicon wafer, made of polysilicon sand that's refined and extruded through a process. And then inside of that, there's copper bus bar, things like that, silver solder. So what you're describing and the likelihood of it, honestly, I don't necessarily see as being actually happening. It could, and there's a possibility of it. And I don't discount that other states and other entities aren't maybe willing to take that waste at this time and they're looking to put it in someone else's landfill. I think you see the same thing in like the wind industry, right? With their turbines where they take up a lot of space. They don't want the blades. They move them to Wyoming and they bury them, right? It's the same thing we see in the coal industry with fly ash, right? Fly ash now has to be retained on site and buried. So all energy is going to have some form of waste, whatever it may be. Nuclear, they store the rods on site, right? I think this is the lowest risk of waste that you're going to see in the energy industry. And just given what's in the actual materials, I don't see recycling downstream being an issue.
Gentlemen, I have a few more comments and questions, but I'll let it up to the board.
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lemay.
In our land use ordinance, 122A23 community solar energy systems. There are a multitude of requirements needed for this facility to move forward, and they've met every one. They're prohibited within shoreline, not shoreline district. It's within 600 feet of designated and protected development for federal, state, county. They're not within that. They're within the wetland to the extent required by Minnesota Wetland Conservation Act. They're not wetland. Interconnection agreement must be taken care of. That's taken care of with Minnesota. It's thing. It doesn't matter. It's here. Minnesota Power Agreement is here for the interconnect. In shoreline zoning district, not in shoreline zoning district. Site plan required to see the site plan. If it's over 10 acres, they need an assessment for DNR. This is 4.2 acres. They got a DNR assessment. They got a phase 1 environmental site assessment. That's taken care of. Aviation analysis. They got the aviation analysis. It's shown that it's not going to impede on our airport. And decommission plan. We got a decommission plan. There's one thing in the decommission plan. There's a couple things I want to bring up. Should be pretty easy though. It said for part of the recycling, it says copper wires will be dug up if required and it's recycled, and aluminum wires will be dug up if required. How come the words if required are in there?
Sometimes when we build solar arrays, we use what's called an above ground cable management system, which do not require digging.
Okay. And then underground power communications can be removed by spreading. Oh, I lost it.
Go ahead, we got time.
I thought I had me in here, but I'll find it later.
It would come back.
I got one more thing before I go on the decommission plan. The only thing, that I would like to see is an increase in the bond for decommissioning. The average decommissioning in the state of Minnesota, I believe was at 48,000, something like that.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
with the counties that I had, gotten information from, the average for a 500 kilowatt installation is 48,125. If you look at the average of those requirements.
Right, in this one, I believe the decommissioning plan requires a $16,000 bond, and that's due to the cost of removing the supplies and then the minusing of the recycling. I would like to see it a little more than that, maybe instead of 16 to 32. That's I'm open for discussion. With that, I will yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
And
And we'll take that under consideration for the raising of the bond.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
one thing I just want to point out too is in our ordinance, financial assurance for decommissioning is discretionary. So if you want to see that, then you need to be looking at another condition as far as what form of the bond and the amount. So I just wanted to let you know that that's not automatic. You need to be putting in a condition to see to it that financial assurance is put up.
Mr. Chair,
Go
on
ahead.
that note, is there a possibility that we could have a 50% down payment with 5 years? Something like that? Possibly?
It could be a phased, yes.
Could be possible.
Go ahead.
Excuse me if I don't understand the procedure on this, but we're talking about a bond. One of the things the sisters have proposed is putting this into a long-term CD. Thus, all of the cash would be deposited upfront, ready to be used.
Okay.
So
That's fine. If that's allowed within our ordinance?
Mr.
Amy?
Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, it would be any sort of mechanism, that's acceptable. We have examples in the ordinance, but it's not an inclusive list. In chatting with our auditor treasurer, she'd prefer a CD as well.
So to follow up with his question, and then I'll let someone else speak. So the CD that goes into wherever, that cannot be used for anything else and so if it does come to a point where the bond needs to be used, who will have access? The sisters have to approve it first before the county, or what happens there?
Mr. Chair, I'm not gonna answer those questions because I don't know.
Okay,
But Shannon Coyle, our auditor treasurer, is here and she would be better suited to answer those questions.
would you be able to answer that this time, Shannon, if you want to come up, please?
Shannon Coyle, Auditor Treasurer for Morrison County. Yes, we had discussed this in great length on the options that we would have, and what would happen is the money would come to Morrison County, we would receipt it in, and we would take it to one of our banking institutions and put the CD on file. That way we've got better visibility, we can track it, it will be there, the interest earned will get included on top of the principal that is invested. And then we'll have visibility and be able to see that as the years go forward.
All right, thanks for that information. Gentlemen, I'll ask if anybody else had any comments. Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple initial questions here. So, Mr. Gast, you referenced the Franciscan Sisters will put up and the money for the bond, or that, I guess we're referring to it as the bond here for decommissioning. Your company owns this project for the first 6 years. Are you contributing? Is your company contributing to that bond at all?
At this time, we are not, sir. We have a somewhat unique financing structure in place to do a bill transfer for the sisters. And it's a way for them the sisters as a nonprofit are not able to utilize the tax credits through the federal government. We as a for-profit business aren't. So essentially the way that our structure works is we own the system for the first 6 years and monetize the tax credits, and the sisters get the system at a discount, right? Versus just paying $1 up front and not seeing any of the financial incentive through the government.
And I understand that. I guess I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit surprised, but I can live with that as long as the establishment of that bond takes place as one of the conditions. If this was to move forward, I would agree with my colleague Commissioner Lemire that I would like to see maybe a greater level of commitment to that bond from the outset, greater than 16,000. We can, I'm sure we'll have discussion on that. And I may look for a considerably greater number, but would also offer the language that I think would be important to ensure some integrity and good faith between the county and the applicants here, that if at the time of decommissioning, the cost of decommissioning is less than the value of the CD and the interest accrued on that there would be language in this passage that would allow that money to be returned to the Franciscan Sisters. And so I hope the applicants will grant us that understanding that although we need to protect the interest of all the people of Morrison County, and we need to hedge, have at least some vehicle to hedge risk that we will undertake in granting this. We may ask for what may seem to be maybe an egregious number, but with the knowing that your investment may return revenue back to you at a later time should it not, should that amount be greater than what is needed going forward here. As long, and so I appreciate Ms. Kowalczyk's clarification to us that number may be discretionary. So there isn't a ceiling already established or a baseline already established within our ordinance and our rulemaking that gives us some flexibility here. Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask that we seriously consider an amount there, because I think there was a lot of questions that were maybe not fully answered or vaguely answered in the process. And I think a number of us have done significant work at trying to find the answers to those, but I think that there is still risk to be hedged, and I think there's still maybe even a slight level of uneasiness going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Commissioner Casper, 1 minute, please. Go ahead, Commissioner Casper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is to Mr. Gast. Do you know, is there studies out there that show the efficiency of these solar panels up in central Minnesota versus something in Arizona? My understanding is working with a man locally that takes care of a good array, a large array. The efficiency is not what's been sold, kind of a bill of goods. They were taught to be 40% efficient, and I'm hearing they're more like 20. I'm wondering, how does Minnesota compare? You know, this year we didn't get snow, panels get covered with snow. This year they got covered with clouds. How efficient do these panels been this winter? Have you had a look at what's going on versus the sun country down south?
Yes, so there is a ton of data that has been put forth by NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and it pertains to solar irradiance throughout the United States. As you get to the southern latitudes, you receive more sunlight, and thus you get more energy production, watts per square foot of panel installed, right? The efficiency that we discussed can be gauged in 2 ways. One of those can be the panel efficiency, and the other one can be what's called capacity factor, or the amount of energy output by a given kW or capacity size, right? The efficiency of these panels that we're installing are in that 20%, which means that of the light that hits the panels, about 20% of that light can be captured and turned into electrons and create electricity, right? On the flip side of that, if you look at what's called capacity factor, that energy over time, this system should see a capacity factor in around that 23 to 25% range at this latitude, meaning that if you have a 100 kW solar array, right, it should produce around 25% of its all. And this explanation is not exactly right. It should produce around like 100 times 25%, so like 250,000 kilowatt hours, something in that range, right? If someone was in here saying that they have a system that's 40% efficient as a solar array, I would say that they are lying flat out. That is not, you know, that's bad actors in our industry, right? Acting poorly. So we have used PVsyst, which is an industry accepted modeling system, to work with the sisters and try to put forth what we believe is the good faith estimate on production. And we have an incentive as well as the developer, because we're going to own it for the first 6 years, right? So we need to prove to them that the system works, right? And does what it needs to do. So from a production standpoint, there's checks and balances to make sure that what we're saying actually occurs for the sisters.
Okay, Mr. Chair, can I ask another question? What do you have? Is there some sort of warranty? You take care of it for 6 years, but I've been told that after 5 years, they've been popping like popcorn in this huge installation. And I'm wondering what kind of warranty are on these panels? Are the sisters going to take this business over about the time that it starts going to popcorn?
No, sir. So the panels that we're using have a 30-year warranty on them. The inverters come with a standard 5-year warranty, which we are paying to extend up to 10 years. So they have a peace of mind that that product will be there. That inverter warranty, if we so choose, or if the sisters were to choose, could even be extended as far out as to 15 or 20 years, right? In the solar industry, there's varying degrees of quality and components that we can use. We are using what we consider to be of the top tier products. We're a Minnesota company. We've been around since 2007. Part of our longevity in this industry has been doing right by our customers, right? And part of that is using quality components, which we have included in this project.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gass. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Amy, you had a question,
Yes,
comment.
if I can backtrack to financial assurance one more time, I just wanted to clarify something. The financial assurance that would be put up it will not be the county's responsibility to fund and decommission this installation. What that financial assurance is for is if the sisters don't do it, then we have that money to do it. So how that mechanism will work is they're putting up that money as a guarantee that they're going to decommission. If they do and it's been decommissioned adequately, then the CD is cashed out with interest and given back. So the only time we would be calling in that CD is if we had to go in and decommission.
I'll make a comment or again, question. Again, I'm looking out for the Franciscan sisters. That's what I hear. We look out for our community and the people here in the county. If this were to be decommissioned, and I believe they're sitting on a 50 or 52 acre system. So if by some reason, again, we can't predict the future, if it costs X amount of dollars to decommission and they have $30-50 million in there, it makes no difference. I'm just using that as an exaggeration. And there's not enough money there. We're going to say, you know what, we have to get it done due to pollution or whatever. And this portion of land is sitting on 3 or 4 acres. Is that going to be surveyed off? Because at my point, I look at that, you're sitting on 52 acres and that's got a value of X. Maybe we'll take the whole land and decommission it. Then to protect the Franciscan sisters, I think maybe they should survey that 3 acres off or 4 acres off. I don't know. Have you considered that for them?
We have not at this time considered parceling that out. Sister Mary, the sisters are here if you'd like to hear their thoughts on that. I don't know what benefit would that have. I'm just asking because I'm trying to think like
What the
what,
benefit would be is that, okay, if they can't afford the decommission and the bond is X amount of dollars and it's gonna cost more than that, the county can, they're gonna say, let's just give it back to the county because we can't afford $500,000 to decommission it. Again, I'm just throwing those numbers out there. We have no idea. We could come after the full 52 acres. Just again, you don't have to answer it. It's more for Amy. Would that be possible?
It's possible to do a land division and create a separate parcel for that installation to be on. That's certainly an option that the sisters would have if they chose to have that be on a separate tax parcel than the remainder of the acreage. Yes.
And I'm not for sure what the rules and regulations are for Little Falls Township or for land services. I'm assuming that's in agriculture.
Yes, and so we have a minimum of 1 acre.
Okay.
So the installation is sitting on approximately 4. And so that certainly would be a compliant lot.
And I'd like that for the discussion, and maybe if I can ask the sisters here in a bit, if they're interested in that condition. And my other comment is, can you insure these? I look at only 2 things that can happen by nature, it's wind or hail. So in 10 years or 7 years, they get hail damage, are you guys gonna pay for that?
we will carry insurance for the time that we own it and the sisters will carry it for the remainder of
So
the time.
5 or 6 years, whenever you have it. So are they able to insure these after the fact, because I mean, look it up with Camp Ripley, they lost how many acres due to wind? So would they be able to insure these? Do we know that?
Yes, transfer of ownership in our experience has allowed for it to be insured after the
By an
sale.
insurance company, so they
Yep.
can insure it for hail and wind and that sort. Okay,
Yep.
and I don't know what the cost is. That was just a, again, a comment I want to make sure the Franciscan sisters can, look at that. Now, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I may, one thought, I don't know if this is possible, but if, in your idea of decommissioning, right? Let's say that instead of parceling it out, if the county were to be on the hook, would there be a means of like a special tax assessment to recapture the cost that the county bared on that over time versus parceling it out over the whole acreage? Just a thought. I don't know if that's possible, but
In my view, if they can't afford to pay for it, they're not gonna be able to afford the taxes on it. It would be tax forfeit. So that would be a thing that I personally would look at. Gentlemen, now we have another discussion that we were asked about the bond issue. Again, Amy, if you want to explain that one more time before we have that discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, within our ordinance, we have permissive language that the county board may require a mechanism of financial assurance to ensure decommissioning. We are very broad and open with that language, and so it could be in whatever form you choose. Like I said, in discussing that with the auditor treasurer, the cleanest, most transparent way would be through a CD that was talked about at the planning commission meeting as well. That could certainly be front loaded with the entire amount of financial assurance that you want to see, or it could be a stepped process where the value of the CD is revisited over time with the end goal of having the ultimate amount that you want to see in there by the time the installation would be due for decommissioning. So those would be the couple of different things you'd want to talk about.
And I'm gonna bring this up to Commissioner Blaine and Lemire. What, if they vote for 50,000, 100,000 again, is that something that the Franciscan sisters would have to come up with that amount to put in the bank? Question.
Mr. Chair, not necessarily, depends on how you have structured. If they agree and they can front load it, I mean, of course, that's probably the best because we know we've got that money and then any interest that accrues is going to be there and then would be returned. Otherwise, what we've seen other counties is at year one, or actually maybe even year 6, when they take it over, that's when they're taking out that CD. And they're front loading it with maybe $15,000. And then when the CDs mature and we need to reinvest it, then we're looking at what it's gained. And then they feed that over a course of a few CD cycles. So it depends on what their comfort level is and ability to put that in. We know we would not be utilizing it for another 20, 25, maybe 30 years. So we have the benefit of time to let that build and see what the market does, and then require deposits to that
And
CD
again,
when it's
I'm gonna
reinvested.
bring one more comment up. So that money's sitting there 7, 8 years now, and the Franciscan sisters want to do a remodel. We're a little cash short. They can't come and say, hey, can you give us this $25,000 or $30,000?
No,
Okay.
no, and I'll defer to Shannon as far as when we take out a CD, is it in our name?
Yes, it would be in the name of Morrison County.
All right, gentlemen, we can open that up for discussion. Commissioner Lemire, you brought it up first. So what dollar amount? Is that where we kind of start, and kind of how would you like to lay the ground for that?
Well, the average per kilowatt of the counties that Amy gave to us were $96 per kilowatt. That's the average. I don't necessarily know if we have to go that high. I started off at $64 per kilowatt, which would be a $30,000.
So your condition would be having a bond for around $32,000.
Yep.
Commissioner Blaine, anything to add?
Can I,
Oh, go ahead.
and I don't want it separated.
The land? or-
Yeah.
Well, that would be up to the sisters, not us.
No, you were talking about making them
Oh, no.
separate.
Oh, no, I would never do that. I was
Oh.
just giving that as a condition, not a condition, as a suggestion. Now they have that, and they can decide what they wanna do from there. So yeah, I would not tell them you gotta do it or not do it. No, that was not my intent, so. Commissioner Blaine,
I just, first of all, I want to say for all of us here at the board, our responsibility is not to question whether or not the Franciscan Sisters should enter into this, or whether it's feasible or productive or anything else. Our responsibility is what does this pose to Morrison County and the rest of the residents of Morrison County? And so I'll go back to hedging that risk when we do this, whether or not it was the Franciscan Sisters who would propose, and Cedar Creek Energy would propose a site, or it's anyone else in the county. Those development decisions are their own, but how they affect the county is our business. I realize there's other counties that are entering into this same realm that we are faced with here now, and everyone is trying to make a guess at what that costs. An exposure may be to the county at the time of decommissioning. And I think that it's hard for us to look ahead at end the life of these panels at, let's say, 25 years or 30 years, that the cost of disposal of them will be X, and knowing what X will be and not knowing what X will be is the risk that we need to try and hedge or mitigate going forward. When I just doing some simple calculating here on my phone in the process here. If we took a $50,000 CD and we ran that at 7% interest over 20 years, then that investment would grow to 67,000, just about $67,200. So that's over 20 years. I'm fearful that our costs to dispose of this, or the cost to dispose of this, could be considerably greater in the future when I look at just the cost of dealing with waste statewide. I don't know what that number is. I can't project that. I can't project the value. I can take guesses at what will the value of that copper be when that's extruded at the time of decommissioning, or the aluminum or things like that. So how I look at this is I would rather find a rather significant number.
so Commissioner Blaine, when you say significant number, what number do you have in mind?
We're talking about how many kilowatts here?
500.
500 kilowatts. $100 a kilowatt gets us $50,000.
So that's the number you're kind of looking at this time?
That for me, Mr. Chair, to move forward, I have to be north of that, because I think that is still, I think $100 a kilowatt 30 years from now on decommissioning costs may be a conservative number. I know this may put it may put a fiscal strain on the investors at this point in time, but I want them also to understand the risk that this could pose to the rest of the residents of Morrison County. And I think that I would want to utilize that comfort language in there that if that investment money turns out to be greater than what the cost of decommissioning is, that they could have that money. And so, Mr. Chair, I would, and this is totally up for debate, but I would feel more comfortable with a investment number of about $65,000.
So you're getting 7%, where do you get 7%? That's another question.
Mr. Chair, this was I'll be honest, I took my phone, I Googled, and that's what the Google came up with in their response to me. Well, if you run 50 grand at 20 years at 7%, that's the return. And so, Mr. Chair, that leads me to my other question that
I'll come right back to you, Amy. On that, again, you brought up there's another option for them. So let's say fiscally, they don't have the 50,000. We could say we'll take 16,000 now, 16,000 in 5 years or something. We could put that in there too, right? So.
And Mr. Chair, one of the things that we had talked about and I talked about with Shannon is what is the longest term CD you could take?
They vary. Each institution has different terms for their CDs. We went to get one the other day. It was around 2 to 3 years. Some banks only have the 12-month CD. It just
They're not very long.
Right.
So,
But I'm talking about if they only have, let's say, $20,000
yes,
available capital right now. And we agreed to a sum that's higher than that. We could say, okay, we could do a condition that would say, okay, we decided to have 50,000 or 100,000. We want 20,000 up front. And then 10,000 every 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, we can condition.
yes, Mr. Chair, my understanding is that when that CD comes due,
Yeah,
that's when they would kick in more money and then it would be reinvested.
all right. And then I'll get back. So what happens if they decide not, well, we won't even go that. Yeah.
They don't even do a of their condition.
Okay, Commissioner Blaine, your second question.
So that kind of goes to where it's going with this. Would that CD or that investment be at a fixed number? And so the answer to that basically is no, it will not. It'll be fixed for maybe a shorter term of time. And also, the responsibility for managing that investment will then lie back to Morrison County. So we also have some responsibilities and we also have some opportunities there. The other question I have, and this goes back to with respect to both the Franciscan sisters and to Mr. Gast in your company, but more to protecting Morrison County, because, Mr. Chair, because ownership of this project is by Cedar Creek Energy for the first 6 years. And I'm wrestling with this in my mind. Would it be in Morrison County's best interest to have decommissioning bond or the like from the energy company for those first 6 years of ownership? In trying to protect Morrison County's position, because we have a third party then protecting the ownership and just looking at that and wrestling with that in my mind, and maybe that is not of concern to the other powers to be here. But I'll throw that out there for consideration.
Let me go to the other commissioners first, so I'll give to you. Any other comments from any commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jolinski.
in all respect to everyone, and certainly in all respect to the fences and sisters of Little Falls, this is not a Morrison County problem and should never be a Morrison County taxpayer problem. If this project, year 15, year 25, year 30, goes south, and there's not finances to cover whatever it is to cover, and we've been using the term decommission. This is not a Morrison County taxpayer problem. This is the owners of the array, if you will. I've got to be honest about it. I'm not comfortable with 16,000. I'm not comfortable with 28. I'm not comfortable with 32. I'm not comfortable with 48. I'm not comfortable with 65. And I really don't know that I'm comfortable with 100. What does 100 do? We have $100,000 set aside in a CD. And at the end of the day, and you've used the term several times, or the figure, 300,000 it's going to cost. Nobody's got the other 200,000 to go with it. Where does it come from? Neither one of us were born yesterday, Mr. Chair. Guess what? It becomes a Morrison County taxpayer issue. And I'm just not real comfortable with that. And I don't really know what I would be comfortable in all honesty, but I'm just a little uncomfortable with those figures that I put today. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Casper, you want to weigh in?
Well, just curiosity, now this CD, if it's invested, there'll be no need for a step where there's an opening to cover. If it's insured, there's a warranty on it. So if they do have problems, where they self-destruct or whatever it be, would that CD be used to cover those costs as it goes, or how does this all work?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
the sole intent of that money would be decommissioning at the end of its useful life. So it would not be a pot of money for repairs, to meet their insurance deductible, or to keep it running in any way.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you,
Commissioner
Mr. Chair.
Lemaire.
Pick me right away. Oh. You were the decommissioning on for the energy company. I don't think that's necessary, just in the fact because the inverter's got a 10-year warranty and the panel got its 1-year warranty.
No, you're answering Commissioner Williams.
Yep, he threw it out for us to
No,
answer.
that's fine.
So I don't think it's necessary that we do it with the energy company. I will agree to what you asked for, which was $100 per kilowatt. But there's another thing that another question I have is this thing here says phase 1. Is there any plan to continue to develop this into a solar farm?
Not at this time. All of the electricity that's produced by this system will be used by the sisters.
Okay, and then in your decommissioning plan, it stated that the furthest facility, a recycling facility or disposal facility is going to be 60 miles. Is that possible?
Wherever Little Canada is, that's the only one in the state of Minnesota.
It's not a big deal for me. I just wanted you to be aware that it says 60 miles and that isn't very far.
I'll have to look these down.
So I don't know if that's something we need to discuss. It's on page 1. All costs, assume a maximum distance of 60 miles. I guess that you're just assuming for the cost. I'm thinking 60 miles is not enough.
It would be for if you had to transport the material offsite, for example, to like any recycler.
So there's a recycler within 60 miles.
Currently within the state of Minnesota. No, Green Lights Recycling in Blaine will take solar panels as well. They're an additional recycler, but once again, more than 60 miles.
And to maybe ease some of your angst about the dollar amount, would it be possible to say that 52 acres can't be what do we call it? Surveyed off? So it has to maintain a 52 acre site. So if the dollar amount is so astronomical on decommissioning, the value of that land would be worth something to the county, correct?
It would, yeah, no, I have to think about that.
I think the question is, you go ahead and keep thinking,
Yeah.
that if we would decommission, and again, it brings up, it's cost $500,000.
No, I understand, but
So could they come to the county, they, the sisters say, you know what, you take it, but then, could we come after the full 52 acres?
It's just the, if the, help ease some of the angst of the land will have value.
no, I understand what you're asking.
It's a coffer.
Right, I know what you're asking, I know why. Whether or not we could condition it that they keep that 52 acres intact and not convey it. Perhaps. I think that's a legal question.
Thought I could help the rest of them.
Yeah, the only thing I'm just concerned about a taking, that's all. And I think that would need legal review.
I'm fine with Commissioner Swain stated anyways.
So now
And-
my question is, maybe the Franciscan sisters can ask this question if he's come up front. If we, go ahead. This might answer a lot of questions here. Paul. Okay, state your name, please.
Sister Mary Patricia Berger, and I'm the treasurer for the Franciscan system.
Sister Mary, if we decide to raise it to 50,000 or whatever dollar amount, is that something that you could put up front the total amount, or would you prefer and say, okay, you know what, I can do the 16,000 original and then pay X amount of dollars every year or two, whatever the CDs comes through? What's your thoughts?
My thought is that we would put it up front,
Okay,
take care of it.
get it out of the way.
Yep.
Okay, all right. We answered that question. So I guess what we have here, again, what's the dollar amount? That is yet to remain to be seen. Commissioner Blaine made the motion, I believe, for 50,000. And if that dollar amount does not require to decommission, that would be refunded back to the Franciscan sisters. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, and I apologize on that, to correct you, but,
Correct me.
okay, I'll correct you. Commissioner Ramirez had mentioned, in reference to some of the other counties, an average of around $100, which would be $50,000. I shared that, I would feel more comfortable with a number that would be $65,000. That equates to an investment of $130 per kilowatt on a 500 kilowatt versus $100. And as I said before, I know this may seem to be an egregious investment or an egregious number right now. Please understand our desire to hedge some of what would be perceived as our risk. And Mr. Chair, if you would ask me to form that, I will. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that one of the conditions to be added would be the requirement of a $65,000 investment bond to be used only for decommissioning, with the stipulation that if the decommissioning costs at end of life total less than the value of that investment, that those monies be returned to the Franciscan sisters, as they will be the ones posting the bond or posting the money up front.
Go ahead, Sister Mary.
I want to clarify that it's a CD that we're looking at.
Correct.
Yeah,
And not a bond.
right.
Yes, yes, and I apologize, Sister Mary, for if I'm using language that would confuse others, but we're making an investment there in a CD.
It's a dollar amount for decommissioning that we'd be using.
And Mr. Chair, this CD will only be drawn upon assuming the sisters can't fulfill their financial
Correct.
obligation.
Yep.
Correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So at the time of decommissioning, I have a little problem with that as an end date. We always talk about end dates. When is do we keep it in there? If the sisters say, you know what, we want to get out of this in 20 years or 15 years or whatever, would they be able to do that and say, let's get rid of these solar panels because there's a new thing, a widget's called coming?
Yes.
In order for us to release the monies from the CD, they would have to show that they have fulfilled that decommissioning plan. And so it really doesn't matter when they decide to decommission it.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
One more question.
I'm not going to ask a question. I'd like to amend my language to clarify this to, instead of saying $65,000, I would like it to read $130 per kilowatt. In case as the project develops, that number of kilowatts would change or reduce the amount of money that would be required from the Franciscan sisters would also reduce.
And Sister Mary, you understand that? What he's meaning by the 130 a kilowatt, we have that look like, what are you talking about here? So.
Instead of saying that we need you to put up $65,000.
Yeah.
We're going to structure that amount based on the number of kilowatts,
500.
which is 500. But in case that number in construction ends up to be 450, that number would reduce. And then also, having that language will also help the board and the county going forward, knowing we use that as a baseline rather than trying to figure, well, we came up with $65,000 or we required $65,000. We'll have a baseline that said we established $130 per kilowatt going forward. Mr. Chair, one other, and I don't know if this needs to be a part of the conditions. I'll throw this out to all of my colleagues here. I don't want this property, this solar array, to be separated from the rest of their
And
property.
again, we understand that. That was already brought up, that's, if they want to have it separated, they could probably separate it. You know? We have no control. We're not going to tell them what they can and cannot do.
I don't want that to be a part of the requirement. I think there was discussion about that.
Oh, we brought it up. We
Yeah,
brought it up.
and
I want to make sure that they knew that that was a possibility, but we're not asking them, or I'm not asking them. Just something they can consider, because if this is their project, not the board's.
And I just want to make sure that we are clear as crystal.
We are clear as crystal. Another condition,
Mr.
Commissioner,
Chair,
go ahead.
just to step through this one, the original motion was from Commissioner Lemire, second by Commissioner Jelinski. Right now, there's a motion by Commissioner Blaine to add a condition. There's no second or consensus on that motion to add that condition to that original motion, which will clear up at the end when we're all done
Well,
with
but
conditions.
again, we have another condition that Commissioner Jelinski asked to put 3
Yeah.
rows of trees on.
Agreed, Mr. Chair.
So,
If we have a motion on the table right now,
yeah,
I will second that motion.
and this is just for the 130
right,
kilowatt
this is not, this is.
cash deposit
Yep.
condition that Commissioner Blaine is proposing, second now by Commissioner Lemire.
So we got a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call on this one.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead,
discussion on the motion.
please.
We all have to be comfortable. I need to grasp this whole thing. We all need to be comfortable that 30 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever that magic date is, and it happens to be decommission day, that 130,000 per
$130.
Kilowatt.
$130 per kilowatt will cover this in the event that, and I am not wishing for any ill will, and I know, sister, you know that the Franciscan Sisters aren't here any longer. That it now needs to be decommissioned. That $130 per kilowatt would take care of that. That's the question. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And we're of the belief that today, that would take care of it. I just need to grasp all over that.
If I put this out to Amy, and again, myself, I don't think it's a guarantee, like you said, Commissioner Jensky, there's no guarantee. What is the dollar amount gonna be?
Yeah.
Maybe no one will take it, maybe someone, so where do we put that number? We can put it, like I said, at 300,000, that might not be enough, or that might be 290,000 too much. You know, so, Commissioner Casper,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Gass, question to you. How many panels does it take to reach 1 kW? So we have some idea to grasp more what's going on here.
2 solar panels, sir.
2 panels. How large are these panels?
The panels are approximately the size of a 4x8 sheer plywood.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gass. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Chair, just rough math on rate of return, at 3%, that would accumulate to $120,000 after 20 years, and at 7%, it would be about $260,000 after 20 years. So we don't know where the market's gonna be, but that's what the rate of return would be.
so I have a motion for I'm just adding the one condition, this is not you're approving it or yet, I'll get for a motion for that one. I just want a motion, we have a motion for the 130 kilowatts, it was, or $130 per kilowatt on the floor with the understanding, believe, again, correct me, is that it would be given back to the sisters if it's not that
I
dollar.
got some language, Mr. Chair.
Please
To
do.
establish a $130 kilowatt CD prior to construction beginning, release upon completeness of decommissioning of the solar array.
Are we good with that, Commissioner Blaine and Commissioner Lemon?
I like it.
All right. Any more discussion on just that condition? All right, I'll ask for a roll call. Commissioner Casper,
Excuse me,
go ahead.
question to you, Mr. Chair. Now, there was a condition of the 3 tree line.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. So
Okay.
I just want to talk about this.
final vote.
This is not the final, this is just on that condition for the decommissioning. So that's what I'm asking.
To add that.
To add that.
I would say aye.
Okay, aye, Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Myself is aye. We beat that one up. We got it ready. Okay, now let's go to Commissioner Jelinski's about the trees as an additional condition.
And Mr. Chair, if I can continue,
Please do.
very clearly, I'm suggesting 3 rows of trees, staggered. I'm also asking for those trees to start out to be 6 feet tall.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
you brought up a point earlier about trees being planted and dying, and you see that quite often around solar arrays around the state, right?
Yeah.
One of my suggestions would be blending trees and a hedge type product to obstruct the view in a better manner, right? When we plant trees that are around 4 feet tall, we see a significantly higher success rate, thus mitigating the risk of them dying. When you get to a 6-foot product, it puts a lot of stress on the tree, and the likelihood of them dying significantly increases. I know that from experience for replacing trees on a lot of our sites as I sit here. So,
Mr. Chair, I could give up the 6 foot for a 4 foot. I have no problem with that. But there was one other thing that I wanted to add, and I apologize for that.
I can come back to you. On the trees, again, I'm sure the Franciscan Sisters, I plant thousands of trees. And the black, you're talking, somebody said Black Hill spruce or whatever. They don't, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, yes, the representative from Cedar Creek at the hearing had said that you would be planting 6-foot tall Black Hill spruce trees is what.
And they're
had
not,
specified that you were going to use this, so you're proposing something. different.
again, you can do whatever you want, Francis, but they're not even native to this area. What's native is the ones that are Pineville Park, the white pine, the Black Hill spruce come up more north. So again, and they're a little bit more tolerant for drought is what you would need. Again, it's an option too. I'm not saying, trees is trees, but if you want to put a 4 foot in there or whatever, just another thought for you to consider. So again, we're not asking you to put that type of tree.
So, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
the representative from my company would have misspoke the day that he made that statement. I was sick and was unable to be here.
Okay.
A Black Hill spruce is not the product that we would choose for this
And
area.
again, that's up to you guys, but again, it's just, yeah, because I had 2 people concerned about the solar in that area, about the way they look so you want to get them growing faster, but I'm more concerned about who's gonna water the darn things, because even after 3 years, 6 years, they need water put to them, so that, again, there's something else if they die down, but if 3 feet, I wouldn't care. I think you can put a foot tree in there, they'll go better than the 3 feet, but again, it's up to Commissioner Jones.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
and to my friend Commissioner Jelinski, I'm wondering if it may be advantageous at this time, as I looked at Ms. Kowalczyk, that we not utilize the language that we use a lot in the planning and zoning arena, especially with incidences like this with neighbors, to protect neighbors and the public. And we use the language, establish and maintain a vegetative buffer rather than defining the type of tree, shrub, or thing like that, that would allow the owners flexibility. I would like to offer that to the Franciscan Sisters, but also to the developers, Cedar Creek Energy, give them some flexibility, but also have that language in there, establish and maintain that vegetative buffer. And so if you wanted to do that with 6 rows of grapevines, and you could establish that buffer, I will leave that to the wishes of the owners.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
the condition that was recommended by the planning commission reads this way. The property owner shall plant and maintain a tree buffer adequate to screen the solar installation on the east and south sides of the solar installation. So do you want to dial in more than that as far as what that looks like, how many rows, vegetation? Otherwise, do you find this adequate?
Gentlemen, I'm gonna put this out for discussion, in my opinion. That's a hard one to police. Okay, what's adequate to you? What's adequate to me? And again, if we put up a 3-tree buffer, we put up grapevines, who's gonna police that if they decide that they want to put up crabgrass and that's gonna be good enough? See what I'm saying? So my question is to you.
Well, it is specified a tree buffer right now,
Okay,
with the condition. And then that was based on the understanding, that it was going to be the 6-foot tall, black spruce, because that's what was stated at the hearing. So I think that's why the planning commission crafted that way. Now with a different understanding of what they're gonna use, that might need to.
and I would personally like to see tree buffer. I don't want to see, grapevines, which I don't exist, but that, you need something because these things are pretty high up there. And again, trees in 8-10 years, they'll be gone if you have the right trees in the zones to be covered with the right covered trees. So that would be my condition is just that, and I would go allow a commissioner a minimum of 3-tree buffer.
3 rows.
You have 3 rows. Again, the distance or the height, I'm not okay because the fact that you're right, if you put in bigger trees, those little ones will catch up a lot faster than, because the big ones will be stunted for quite, 2 or 3 years. And by that time, the little ones are, that's my condition that I would like to have on there. But again, more discussion if you'd like. Let's go ahead.
How do you usually put buffer in?
It depends on the county. So, most of the counties have defaulted through the years to put in a Black Hill spruce, which we do not like. They die, right? They're not native here. They don't do well here. What we see as being truly the best screening is when you blend, staggered trees, as you suggested, right? And if you intermix, bushes, right? So if you plant a tree line 16 feet on center and you stagger them, the trees won't grow into each other, they won't kill each other off. And then you can plant bushes in between at every 8 feet, and then that gets the low areas, and then the trees grow up and they're tall. So that's truly the best way to screen a solar array.
Amy, are you okay with something like that?
Should that,
I'm gonna listen
I
to
like
my
that.
administrator. Do you have anything written right down with that or a motion?
Mr. Chair, there's currently no motion on the floor to add that condition, just a discussion, but I've captured, establish and maintain a 3-row vegetative buffer consisting of trees and bushes.
You guys good with that?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
yeah, I'd like it, if they, as long as the other language is kept, that was moved by the planning commission, that they had up here on the screen before that says that adequately,
We'll get rid of that.
Adequate to screen the solar installation.
adequate to screen the solar installation on the east and south sides of the solar installation. I would like to keep that. I would be fine if we kept this language and just changed the word tree to vegetative.
Mr. Chair, would I be able to, if you pulled that map back up, may I walk up there?
Yeah, can you do that?
So
And yeah, do you want this one or would you like
Last
to?
one you have.
Okay, and I'm gonna get a microphone if you give me just 1 minute.
So as part of our proposal, there's an individual that lives in the home here. We had planned to put screening along the north side and help obstruct his view of the array. To complete screening, my suggestion would be to start and go up and tie it in with the existing tree line.
So east and north side then?
Just a portion of the north side to obstruct the view for that home.
I want Sister Mary out there to be pointing and making sure they're doing it properly.
Got it.
Can you go to the next screen,
Where the panels are,
Yeah.
Commissioner? Okay,
please? So why would he even need to put a salt buffer in?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
That's what I'm suggesting we don't. You just, there's
Connect
already,
from tree line to tree line is what you'd like to do.
I think that is the most reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too. There's no reason to go on the south side. Connect them trees, the southern part to the northern part.
I don't think there's ever been conversation about the south side.
East side.
That was,
South side to the
that was
solar.
part of their,
Part of the-
planning commission. Maybe they misspoke and should have been north.
That's a good catch, good catch. Yeah, the north and the east side of it, Steve.
Yeah.
Portion of the north.
Mr. Commissioner, that is the most reasonable.
Yep, if you don't Highway 10, you want to bring them off and of course you have the residents, so yeah, I would agree.
Thank
So
you, Mr.
we don't have a motion a second. Could you kind of read that one more time? Matt?
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the condition would be the property owner shall plant and maintain a vegetative buffer, a minimum of 3 rows consisting of trees and bushes adequate to screen the solar installation on the east and north sides.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that as my motion to be added as a condition.
I have a motion. I need a second.
I would second that.
I got a second. Now, again, this is just for that condition at this time to be added to the conditional use permit. Any more discussion? Again, this will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Casper. Commissioner Blaine.
All right,
Commissioner Zelinski.
Aye.
Myself as an aye. That condition passes. Anything else you need to discuss, Commissioner Zelinski?
Mr. Chair, there was one other item that I remember conversation of from the planning commission meeting, and that was pollinators. Don't ask me what we're calling a pollinator, but I know there was conversation about it. And as with the trees, as with the shrubs, as with the rest of it, who's in charge of the pollinators? That's all, and who's gonna maintain the pollen? And I think that's a legitimate question, Because if we just throw seeds and Jack's Beanstalk doesn't grow, or Sister Mary's beanstalk doesn't grow, okay, what are we gonna do? Plant more seeds and just walk away from them? That's my personal.
So, during the time that the array is owned by Cedar Creek Energy, we shall maintain and establish the pollinator-friendly seed mix. That is the most difficult time in this seed's life to get it going, is the first year or two, right? One of the benefits of a low-growth pollinator mix from an operation and maintenance standpoint is it, once established, is typically one mowing a year. Or it can be grazed, which is what we would prefer to do with sheep. The sisters are working on a campus-wide prairie restoration project, and we intend to work with them hand in hand to make sure that the seed design that we implement inside of the array matches what's outside of the array for uniformity across the property.
And that's good with me, I don't know I don't remember that was actually a condition. But, or if it needs to be or should be, and I'm just throwing it out there, Mr. Chair, that's all.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't want us as a county to dive too deep into the business of the owners of the property out here. I would like them, or my wish would be for them to have the flexibility that if they choose to create a pollinator habitat within their solar array, they have the ability to do that, but I do not want to handcuff them and say that they have to do that and they have to maintain that. And if they have, as part of their strategic plan, to do some prairie restoration, some type of address of their physical property, I want that to be a decision that is made by the body of Franciscan Sisters and not a directive from Morrison County.
Go ahead. Mary.
Absolutely.
That is our intent. Our intent is to have pollinators and to maintain it on all of our property.
And if I may interrupt, I can see your head spinning on what you can do to this to make it productive. And I know you as the Franciscan Sisters would do your best to keep it up. So, and I thank you. So we're good with that. So again, we have the full, conditional use permit I already got a motion and a second for more discussion on the total conditional use permit. So with these conditions added,
And Mr. Chair, just to clarify, you did not add any pollinator condition.
no, do not
Okay.
add.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
our intention of building this project is to maintain compliance with the conditional use permit throughout construction and operation. Height of trees was discussed as around 4 feet. Not every single tree is 4 feet on the button. Would it be acceptable for you guys to add 3 to 5 feet, with the average being 4 or something along those lines?
We didn't.
Put out, if you have to put
It is,
Okay, I just-
seedlings or whatever, because again, water, and then you water again.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify because I want to make sure we
No,
maintain.
you're not required to put the size of the tree up there. And again, I'm sure the sisters will be watching you closely. Okay, so we have we have a motion and a second for the permit to the solar array for the Franciscan Sisters. I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make one more statement.
Please do.
If I may. We've spent a lot of time discussing, the CD, the investment in the bond and in relation to, that point in time where this facility may be decommissioned. And we've had discussion about what that risk could possibly be to Morrison County. I want to make sure we put it out there that at that time of decommissioning, if the cost to decommission this site is greater than the value of that CD and its interest, it is still not the responsibility of Morrison County to bear that cost. The responsibility for that, for the entire cost of decommissioning is the owner. Is the owner of that property. We go through this process and take these actions in the event to help anticipate those costs and help the owners in anticipating what those risks may be. And so through all this discussion, we've inferred at times what risk there could be to the county. But I want to make sure that we have clarity out there that when this type of development happens, that responsibility at the end of the day still lies with the owner of the property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Amy, do you have any comment on that?
I don't, Mr. Chair.
That would not need to be a condition or anything like that. That would be, because again, that's as part of the permitting process would be that.
Correct. The ordinance language is clear on that.
But thank you for that, Commissioner Lemire. Again, I got a motion and a second. Anyone? Go ahead.
Before you take the vote and then discussion, still welcome to Mr. Chair, of course, please, but Commissioner Lemire will need to amend his motion to accept the added conditions. And Commissioner Jelinski, we need to affirm his second on that before you take the vote.
So again, the motion needs to be amended with the additional condition that we added by vote to the consider the conditional use.
I will amend my motion to include the two conditions.
Two additional. Right, yeah, but we have more conditions than just those two. I know they all provide that.
And I will second.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so go ahead. Oh, no.
Oh, ready to vote?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right, so now, we got no more discussion?
I have discussion. I just want to say one thing. I just want to say, the governor and the legislature passed a bill, clean energy bill, that we have to be 100% renewable, carbon-free energy by 2040, and that's not very far from now. So we're going to see a lot more of this. I don't like, I might hurt your feelings, but I'm not a big fan of solar. I'd like to see nuclear power plants built, but unfortunately, we don't have that option. So this is our option, and the sisters came for us with a 4.2 acre site. They did all the things that are within our land use ordinance to get this passed. And I have to believe that with this mandate, this 2040 mandate, that they're gonna have to figure out something to do with these panels. I don't think it's gonna be a big catastrophic event when they have to decommission panels. I believe they're gonna have to figure out how to recycle them, and they are recycling them at this time. So those are my two comments, Mr. Chair, and to you.
Okay, so we have with the additional two conditions with consideration of the conditional use permit for the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls Cedar Creek Energy to establish a 500 kilowatt community solar energy. Before we do that, I got one do you plan, if this would happen to pass, when would we start this getting everything ready?
We would like to start construction in most likely June or July of this calendar year. Pending, we're waiting on a medium voltage transformer, delivery date.
And completion would be this year too then?
Our plan is to achieve commercial operation.
Okay,
Transformer, they gotta wait on.
all right, so I got a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine,
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Casper. Aye. Commissioner Lemire, myself is an aye. Motion carried. We beat that one up, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. Are we ready for a 5 or?
I am.
All right, let's take a 5 or 10.
Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we?
flavor. But I'm gonna tell him it was my Lanier and he said, what's it? It's like,
I was hoping to get out of here.
like a half an hour ago.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
You don't look like Public Works reports.
oh boy. Don't say
No,
that.
no.
Oh, boy.
That fucking.
Are we all here? All right, gentlemen. Let's bring her back to order here. Who do we have in front of us? And why are you here?
Along Brad Bolton, the GIS coordinator.
Mr. Chair, Amy. Amy, thank you very kindly for bringing Brad along for a change. Brad hardly ever gets to come before the board of you. Glad you're here.
All right. So what do you have for us, Amy and Brad?
Well, if you recall, when I gave you my annual report at the end of December, one of the items I had updated you on was our section corner work from the GIS standpoint, as far as how many section corners we've identified and mapped and all of that. One of the, also the items that I told you was that we are hoping to advance that work with some money that's coming from the state. And we are at that point. And so this is really just to inform you of the status of that plan. And I'll let Brad talk about what, how will we normally forward, because he's been working with our county surveyor on this project in preparation for application.
Yep, Scott couldn't be here today, so we're voting on his behalf. But, so last year there was talk about, trying to get some legislation money put in place for trying to restore the public land survey system, all section corners that were placed back in the 1800s. So I believe the number is 9.8 million, is now available for counties to apply for. Some counties are in different positions than us. Some have all their section corners done, or almost all of them, so they're not gonna be contended with some of this money. But we are somebody that really could use this. So we're gonna apply for the maximum amount, which is 300,000 to non-matching grant. So it'd just be all to us. And they have rankings on how counties can qualify. So at this point, next Thursday, the 22nd, we need to submit a letter of intent, filling out a bunch of their baseline questions on our status of what we know for our section corner information, and how we perceive the project's gonna end up going forward, when it can be done. The grant submission deadline will be April 5th. So this letter of intent is not really something that needs board approval. It's just, we're informing you guys that, hey, we're gonna be going through with this. And, we'll keep you updated as we go forward here in the next couple of months.
So Brad, go ahead.
So when there's a grant submittal, that's when that's gonna be going before you. They really, I think at this point, want to know how many applicants they may have. And so this is just letter of intent. When the whole grant packet, or when the whole application package comes forward, then that's gonna be presented to you.
It doesn't specify exactly what we can use it for. Is it just gonna be for section corners and that's?
There's some language to it, but yeah, it's mostly restoring those original section corners.
And that's what we intend to do with this. And we have some dialed in on some higher populated areas where we have a lot of development and it's mostly in our lakes areas. And so those are the priority areas for us.
And I'm assuming if we would get the whole 300,000, we wouldn't have to hire another person to come.
That would be something our county surveyor would take care of and with his crew.
All right. Go ahead, Commissioner Casper.
Mr. Chair, just a simple question. What percent of the corners are not marked? Do you have an idea?
So I've been having a really fun time the last few weeks trying to figure that out. And I'm still actually trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Because we have our inventory of recorded documents of certifications for section corners. What we don't have is any are still out there to be found. And so it's a matter of going through those old original surveys from the 1850s and saying, well, they said there's one here, all throughout every township. And so that's my process right now, is putting that into a GIS map layer in a database format so we can quickly calculate numbers. So if you guys ever have that question, what percentage of our county has section corners and how many of those have latitude, longitude information and where, and so we can figure out that stuff out really fast. So I'm doing a lot of prep work right now to do that.
Very good.
And then this grant money and our county surveyor going out and actually finding this information
is just gonna propel that forward.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, anything else, gentlemen? Commissioner Zelinski.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Amy, Brad, is this state or federal or both or one or the other?
State.
Okay, very good. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, timing of when, we would know whether or not we received grant dollars. Do we have an idea when that declaration may be?
So one of the bullet points that Scott had left for us, the grants should be announced April 3rd.
It's moving very
It's going very quick.
Soon.
Yes.
So soon.
And grant, it says grants begin in May of 24.
So we could start work this summer on some of the section.
If we get the money.
Correct, yes. So you'll be hearing more about this. This is really just to inform you that we're moving forward with the letter of intent. And then as this moves forward, then you will have some touch bases, more than likely maybe not from us. It'll be more from the recorder's office and the county surveyor.
Just let you know, this is more informational, gentlemen. You don't need to take them.
Correct. Yes.
Good luck.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Matt.
Amy, any preference on who, signs the letter of intent? Do you want the chair, myself, or come from your office? Okay,
County surveyor, so we don't need a signature, just wanting to make you aware that we're.
thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
all right, appreciate it.
Have a great day.
All right, looks like we
See,
got
Amy,
someone else.
we're gonna come anytime you want to, just so you know.
I sent you that one condition.
Let's see here, with Tony. There you go. Ooh, Alicia.
Morning, Tony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Tony Hennon, Public Works Director.
What do you have for us, Tony?
I've got a handful of items this morning, a couple of contracts. We're going to review some abstracts and then an agreement with MnDOT. We're going to start with our first one. This is our contract number 311, our County Road 220 box culvert replacement project. I'd like to review bids. We had a bid letting on the 1st of February. A lot of interest on this project. We had 7 different contractors bid on this project, which is fantastic for a project of this size and really any of our projects. We had an engineer's estimate of $778,052. And of those 7 bids, they range from $750,000, $373.50 all the way to $1,200,000. The low bidder, Marvin Shredder, came in at that $750,373.50 to 3% roughly underneath our bid estimate. I would request that the board authorize a resolution to award contract number 311 to Marvin Shredder Incorporated in amount of $750,373.50.
Gentlemen, ask for motion.
So, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion, and I got a second. Did you get them? Perfect. All right, this will be any more discussion? Not, this will be a roll call. vote. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Casper.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our second item is another contract. This was let on last Thursday, the 8th of February. This is our contract 314, the Dunes paving contract. This one covers a lot of roads, roughly 41 miles of paving here in the county this year. We have our roads of CASA 1, CASA 3, CASA 47, County Road 204, County Road 205, 2 projects on County Road 206, County Road 264, 275, and then 275 also ties in with Rowan County, they're 129. And then our County Road 285. Again, we had a lot of interest. This was fantastic for the county. We were anticipating our bids to come in around that 7 million range. We had an engineer's estimate of just over just shy of 7.3 million at 7,277,000. Again, we had a lot of interest, 7 bidders on this. Usually we see roughly 3 to 4, so 7 fantastic. We had bids ranging from 5,789,000 all the way down to 7,125,000. The low bidder is a local company, Knife River Corporation. here at the Little Falls area. I recommend authorization to, or I request authorization from the board to have a resolution to award this contract to Knife River Incorporated in the amount of $5,789,619.07.
Gentlemen, I need a motion.
So moved.
I got a motion. I need a second.
I second it.
We'll give it to Commissioner Blaine.
No, Lemire, that's mine. Lemire,
We'll give it to
I didn't
Lemire.
say anything, so.
It was Commissioner Casper, so, but anyway, for a little bit more discussion, we all know this is all for Commissioner Lemire's area. We see that, you know. So I can see why he wants to second that, but more importantly, you had great intuitive, because you said that there was a couple locals that were not putting bids out there so much, and lo and behold, here they are. Now they got a good size one.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we had we were out a little bit earlier on our bids, and a lot of our neighboring counties, they haven't had any of their bid lettings. This contract is a really nice from a contractor's perspective. We have two large sets. We have a lot of hot mix on this project. So it garners a lot of interest and some hopefully high profitability for those contractors. We want the contractors to make money on these. We also want, the county to receive reasonable prices on it. And then our quotes reflected that, or our bids reflected that. So we're very fortunate. And also the market was just very unique. Oil's down from last year, so that helped a lot of their construction costs. So even of the morning, one of the contractors commented that oil had dropped that morning, they incorporated into their bids. So we're very fortunate to receive these kind of numbers. So, very excited for Morrison County with this.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I have a motion, a second. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Casper.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelinski. Aye. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, if I may say something in reference to this, if I can. I think there's two things that are real striking with me about this this contract that we just passed. And number one is the work that was done by Tony and his staff in prepping all of this work and getting out on the front end and getting these projects out to bid ahead of other counties. And really getting very attractive numbers for us. That gives us a lot of flexibility to do things this summer. Also, the fact that we're having local companies that employ a lot of individuals who are residents of Morrison County. And so a lot of this money is staying local and will get recycled local through these local companies. And that also is a big plus. But thank you, Tony, to you and to your entire staff for their work this early winter on getting this out to bid.
Mr. Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Blaine's comments. Morrison County is very fortunate to have a fantastic engineering staff with our construction engineer, assistant engineer, and our 5 engineering technicians. They're very good at what they do. And I'm very appreciative to have them working for me. And you see the benefits, through our bidding processes. You see them during our construction operations this summer. They're very dedicated to our county. We're lucky to have them.
And maybe with that savings, they can do a little roads that aren't my district. Maybe just.
I don't know.
Good try.
Okay, all right, moving on. What else do you have here?
Mr. Chair, our final one is a request to sign an agreement and a resolution to enter into that agreement with MnDOT. MnDOT has an upcoming project on their trunk Highway 25. It'll be going from Genola up to the North County line, Morrison, Crow Wing County line. That's a pavement improvement contract, but part of that contract, they're doing some minor drainage improvements. And one of the improvements they've selected is to replace one of our box culverts. It's on our CASAP 48. It's a little bit tired, and MnDOT recognizes that the drainage benefits of replacing that structure with their project benefit both them and us. So what this agreement does is it enters us into the agreement with MnDOT in that after the box culvert is constructed, we then become the owner. So they'll replace our existing one and replace it with a new one that meets some updated standards.
All right, gentlemen. I need a
So move it.
motion and a second for the resolution that's in front of us. I have a motion. Did I get a second?
Sure, absolutely.
Commissioner Jelinski, any more discussions?
Yeah, just like, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Tony, can you tell me the location of that again? Tell us, please.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Casper, that is located on Arkansas 48. It'll be on the east side of Trunk Highway 25.
Very good, very good. I imagine that's where you're at. That's right where Trevor's are at.
Yep, it'll be right in their neighborhood. I'm sure some of our local contractors might be interested in bidding on that. You know, it's a nice project. They're anticipating a hopefully a June letting. A lot of that's to get some of their materials in place. If pipe and some of that becomes available early, you could see construction in the fall of 24, but realistically, the bulk of the work will be happening in 2025.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, I have a motion and a second. I have just a little comment here too. Again, the old saying of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. I commend our public works for the roads that we have in this area. You can drive north, east, west, south. When you get out of this county, you can tell the difference in the roads. And I say these are very important again for our county. And again, thank you and your staff for the tremendous job that you, even though it's a commissioner of the mayor's here. Bobby, go, okay.
Shady Brook.
So anyway, I just want to let you know that we have one of the best, and I'll challenge anybody in the state of Minnesota about our roads that we have.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. You know, again, we're very fortunate to have a fantastic maintenance staff, fantastic engineering staff that works very hard for the county. It also takes a lot of support from our county commissioners. You know, we do get a lot of outside funding, but it takes your support to achieve that. But we also have internal local funding that helps support our program. So without your guys' support, you know, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So yeah, thank you for that.
All right, we have a motion in a second. This is not a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless there are other questions or comments.
Anything further, gentlemen?
I'm good.
Thank you, everyone.
For next
Tony.
time, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, moving right along. Administrators report. Matt, what do you have for us?
Nothing to bring before the board, Mr. Chair, unless the board has anything they'd like me to address.
Otherwise, what dates do we have for committee reports?
February 18th
18th,
through March 2nd.
March 2nd. And again, just because it's just a pattern that I like, we'll start on the end. Commissioner Jelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On February 19th, we all know that it's President's Day. On the 20th at 8:30 in the morning, in the boardroom, the board will meet in a planning meeting. And at 6 o'clock that evening, there's a planning commission board of adjustment meeting, same room. Wednesday, the 21st at 5 PM, I have a Hands of Hope meeting that is virtual. On the 22nd at 12:30 in the afternoon, I have a State Emergency Communications Board meeting that's virtual. 3 o'clock that afternoon, I'll be participating in the 2024 Public Safety Communications Conference Advisory Group meeting, also virtual. On the 26th of February at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a State Emergency Communications Board planning meeting that's in the city of St. Cloud. I'll be participating in that, as I have been. On the 27th, 9 o'clock in the morning, county board's going to meet in the county boardroom right here. And somewhere around 10 o'clock, depending upon your speed, Mr. Chair, we're going to have a budget meeting following the county board meeting. Actually kind of scheduled for 10, 11 o'clock, whatever time. Maybe it'll be 9:30, I don't know. On the 28th, it's Wednesday, the 28th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board meeting. Full board will be meeting in the city of St. Cloud. And on March 1st at 8:30 in the morning, there's a planning meeting, TSWAC, so that means that's at the landfill. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have at this time.
All right, Commissioner Casper.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Tuesday, February 20, I have orientation at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the Great River Regional Library, and then that same day at 6 o'clock is the meeting. And then on Thursday, the 22nd, I have a Rural Development Finance Authority meeting at Pine Country Bank at 3 o'clock. And then on Friday at 10 o'clock, Mississippi Headwater Board, Bacchus, Minnesota. Everything else Jeff covered.
All right,
Thank you.
Commissioner Blaine.
Um,
How about Commissioner Lemire? We'll let you get your glasses.
All I got is, the ad is 29th, HRA 9 o'clock at 8:30. And do we have, PCBOA on 20th?
Commissioner.
Yes, we do. We have one at 6 o'clock.
And I'll just go ahead and then I'll come back to Commissioner Blaine. Above and beyond that, I gotta look at my dates again here. So, I have TCC on, at 5:30 on Thursday, the 22nd. Soil and Water at 8 o'clock on Friday, the 23rd. At Soil and Water, yep. And then on the big one, the Quad County Extension meeting was canceled on the 12th. So now it's gonna be on the 26th at Stearns County over by Mills Fig Farm. And that's at 10 o'clock. And again, all board members are invited.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt you, on the 26th, that quad meeting, I'm booked, so I won't be at that meeting. Thank you for,
Yeah, but I say it was canceled due to other people not being able to.
Yep.
So, otherwise, they got me covered. Commissioner Blaine.
I believe the only thing that, we haven't discussed that I would have, and I'll check my fiscal calendar in case I missed something, Tabitha, but would be Mississippi River One Watershed, One Plan meeting on Tuesday at 2 o'clock,
Was Tuesday.
the 27th, Tuesday, the 27th, at 2 o'clock at the Crow County Land Services Building. Bobby got the rural development finance authority. No, that's tomorrow. I'm sorry. That's this week.
I have on the 22nd.
Yes, there is region. Thank you. Thank you, dear. Region 5 Development Commission on Thursday, the 22nd. And there's an in the EDA meeting before that, but yes, that I believe is everything. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen,
Mr.
anything
Chair.
else?
As Commissioner Jelinski highlighted, the 19th of February is a holiday in our government services, except for, of course, our sheriff's office will be closed that day and any other emergency services. And then the 21st and 22nd is AMC Legislative Conference, which I will attend and bring back notes.
Gentlemen, AMC conference, all right.
that's a legislative
Yep.
conference.
Anything else? I'll adjourn at 11:08.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
For you.